Hi, Pavel. Thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Of course. So my name is Pavel. I now live in the Bay Area. My background is I have a PhD in biomedical sciences. Now I work as a business development manager, but I have lots of fascination with space and space biotech in particular. So I've been following some of the recent developments in space industry since 2020, ever since the Demo 2 launch. And yeah, looking forward to talking with you today.
Yeah, I see you have a poster behind you with pretty much every rocket on it.
That's right, except Starship. It
Oh,
needs an
wow.
update, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's, Starship's gone through multiple designs and, uh, kind of variations. It's like, wh which one should be on the poster? Like the
I mean,
most.
I have to give a shout out to Marco's house. So I have his Flight 2 design, and Tony Bell, I think, that designed it. So I feel like this is a great one to add to the poster. Honestly, the Flight 2 to me was the biggest leap. I think the Flight 3, even though it was amazing and just broke all kinds of records recently, I feel like Flight 2 is where we took it to the from not sure to okay, we just need to get there.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and, flight one, I guess the bar was just don't blow up the ground systems, but
Exactly.
it did destroy the launch pad.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, some unscheduled digging.
we have 100% reusable rockets, but disposable launch pad.
That's correct. Yes, just a little paint and yeah, elbow grease.
So what in 2020, was it the demo two that really brought your attention? Like, how did that get on your radar?
Yeah, honestly, I was explaining it to somebody and I can't remember anything before demo 2. I feel like I was kind of aware of like International Space Station and things of that nature. Obviously was aware of Elon Musk, but somehow my memories just seem to escape exactly how I ended up being so enthralled by it. I feel like I started hearing rumblings here and there about Falcon 9 being reusable and all that stuff, but I feel like that solidified this transition from just like okay, there is this thing called space to there is this thing called space industry. And then I really went on a deep dive on all things related to Starship development specifically. Obviously, I'm originally from Russia, so I started reading about Soviet rocket program, kind of current iteration of Russian launch capabilities and so on. So I've been really on this nonstop streak for the last few years, really understanding more about where things are at and where things are moving.
As And talk about where things are moving. What about the future do you envision, and what about that excites you?
Yeah, to me, I mean, coming from not a space background by any means, but from biology background and biotech. To me, what really excites me is the opportunity of bringing biotechnology industry to space. Honestly, this is one of those exciting applications of which there are many interesting angles and business cases and research cases that I'm super interested. I keep my ear to the ground or to the space, I should say, when it comes to developments like from Varda or from other companies like Redwire, doing all kinds of interesting, cool biotechnology research projects right now as they are getting towards the MVP, minimal viable products, and then eventual like space manufacturing and beyond. So, space economy and biotechnology aspect of it, making drugs in space, is something I'm really interested. Hopefully, I want to be a part of that. So that's part of the reason I'm educating myself about that. I feel like a lot of people in biotechnology industry are asleep at the wheel. They have no idea what's happening up in the space, and I think this is a great opportunity to get involved.
It's so funny. I was talking to somebody some years back, and they were like, would going to space make you live longer? Would it help to prevent cancer and all these other things? And it's kind of funny that if it did do those things, it'd be a big draw. But we actually have the exact opposite situation where people lose bone density, they lose muscle mass, it affects their vision.
Yeah,
A whole bunch of negative medical consequences to traveling in space today.
that's right.
Um, and I mean, from a biomedical experience standpoint, do you see things on the horizon that would kind of offset that?
I mean, we need to get up there and investigate this in more detail. Honestly, it's both a blessing and a curse to go up there, to be in microgravity, experience the world from this unique vantage point. I feel like yes, you might lose a year or two, so to speak, by just going up there, but I feel like the views will hopefully counteract that at least a little bit. Honestly, with advent of cheaper flights to space, ultimately we need to understand more about what it's like to live there and permanently be present in space. And it just needs, obviously, even before we get there, we need to understand, we need to leverage that platform of space, try to use that for what it is, which is great accelerant for our understanding of senescence and aging and all this diseases that affect us here on Earth. This is the first use case, so as a research platform. But then ultimately, as we start to be there much longer and go further away from Earth, we want to start developing solutions not just for Earth, but for those kinds of applications and those kinds of travels.
Hmm. And let's see, Mike Massimo, one of the astronauts, he recently published a book. I'm trying to remember what it was called. I think it's called Moonshot, actually.
Mhm.
And he relays a story about one of the Apollo astronauts that he had a conversation with. And he's like, what was it like to be on the moon?
Mhm.
And he's expecting like some type of like really um, kind of inspirational thing. And the astronaut's like, well, on the moon, you have that 1/7 gravity, which is just enough to let you, have a bowel movement like normally. He's like,
Wow. All things you would not normally consider, especially now. It's who knows what it's like to have a bowel movements on the moon. We kind of forgot how to do that. It's been a
well,
while.
it's funny. I was interviewing somebody last weekend. Maybe it was the weekend before last, and they were like, "Hey, maybe they'll put a Bucky's on the moon." And it'd be like the Bucky's on the way to someplace else in the solar system. So
Exactly.
it's kind of interesting. But you know, I guess uh, you know, we know that weightlessness is like really like harmful for the human body in terms of kind of the way the body no longer needs a lot of the facilities that it has in place. But
Exactly.
it's unclear on if 1/7 gravity is enough. I was wondering if you had an opinion. Do you think a lot of these, I mean, the Apollo astronauts weren't there long enough to really judge it?
Mhm.
Hopefully, as we get people there that are stationed for weeks and months and maybe even years,
Mhm.
we'll get some real data. But if you had to make a guess right now, based upon just your personal experience and
Mhm.
analysis, do you think 1/7 gravity is enough to kind of counteract all of those weightlessness ill health effects?
1/7. That's an interesting thought. It's certainly would be a lot better than complete complete microgravity in the where ISS is located, right? It helps to I feel like to accomplish a lot, not so much for the human health per se, but it allows us to have an industry, have capabilities, on the moon, for example, where we can start building out. As we learn about the true effects of what 1/7 does to the human body, 1/7 gravity, we can hopefully accommodate that. Ultimately, even in microgravity, astronauts, yes, they lose some of it, but they have a strong regimen of exercise, right? It's a lot easier to establish something similar, much better gym on the moon. That's my guess. It's a lot easier to do that. So I expect it's going to be a lot easier for us to maintain that sort of stuff. We just need to maybe do heavier bench presses or things of that nature. Have like very heavy boots to walk in and on the ground and so on. So I feel like we have a lot more opportunities once we have a little bit of something to hold on to.
Now you mentioned that demo two is whenever space really became part of your awareness.
Hmm.
When did you become aware that NASA was planning to go back to the moon?
That's a great question. I don't recall exact moment. I feel like it would have been part of the demo 2 presentation, at least in some shape or form, as in the form of a reel at the time, because certainly that didn't happen until much later, the SLS launch. Certainly, as that campaign was, on the pad, there was like scrubs and hydrogen leaks and so on. I was obviously already in tune. I started hearing more and more about it. I feel like as I was educating myself about Starship, then I learned that Starship was part of the Artemis missions, what role it plays, and then I guess I learned about the SLS itself, if you will. So that's kind of how I learned about the details of that first mission, and then kind of what their plans are for the future.
And what do you think about us going back to the moon?
I wanna have my wedding anniversary on the moon in the moon hotel at some point. I feel like we should go there for sure. I think it's an awesome opportunity. Cannot wait for it to happen anytime soon. The my take on like SLS getting us there, that's a different story. But certainly, it we need that overview effect. I feel like we can even magnify it by going to the moon for sure.
I think it's funny you say that because about a year and a half ago,
Mhm.
I was celebrating my 25th year marriage anniversary. And I was telling people there that my 50th one is going to be on the moon. So
Yeah,
uh,
there you go.
maybe uh, I'll pay for the accommodations. They have to pay for their travel.
Yeah, yeah, deal. That's perfect because it's still not gonna be super cheap. I'm sure it's gonna be at least a few $1,000s by the time that's the Hilton develops their first moon hotel. But yeah, we'll get there. I have no doubt.
Yeah, if we do that, maybe we could do some type of joint marriage celebration.
How about that? Yeah, sounds good. Yeah.
Um, when you think about the future of humanity, if you look out 200 years, now 200 years is such a long time. I mean, 1903 was our first powered flight. 200 years ago, we couldn't even record sound, which is kind of,
Mhm.
we're kind of overwhelmed with sound recordings at this point. It's hard to imagine a time whenever sound was only made by actual, like real time only.
Mhm.
200 years ago, we had no computers, no internet, no it was quite a we were using what steamships to were we even using steamships? I don't know. To come
Probably not that much. No, I think there was
No,
still horses.
we're still using horses and we were using sailing boats.
Yeah.
So 200 years is like an impossible time to really predict. But if you were to like imagine out in the future 200 years, do you see humans still just on the earth making these short trips to places? Or do you think we fundamentally have expanded to occupy the solar system? And what other kind of developments do you expect in that time frame?
We have a base on Mars, and almost a small little town on Mars. Going 200 years, I feel like is good enough time to get that situated and well on its way to be reasonably independent. Maybe not fully independent. Certainly, moon is a big part of our economy, and then we start to go to nearby asteroids and do mining on there. Moon is probably quite well established as a point near to us. I feel like 200 years, a lot of things can change in that time frame. Ultimately, for us to have those milestones, we have a lot of ingredients to succeed in that. We just need to realize what ultimately can get us there, and that's a human potential, that's human optimism, it's human desire to explore, and not be so entrenched in all the things that kind of hold us back from achieving those things, like all the frameworks and institutions that sometimes hinder that progress. So that's, I feel like, the only way we can get to those levels of, like, expanse TV show, like, stuff that I'm watching right now, is if we kind of try to unburden ourselves from a lot of those things that hold us back, and ultimately allow people who are visionaries to accomplish those goals, and for us all collectively to be a part of that exciting future.
And some people think that maybe Mars will be more free, or will be like a really kind of like a lot of people will be able to be self-directed and stuff. But in a situation where you may have institutions or individuals that can literally control the air that you breathe, it seems like that power might actually push societies and organizations and groups of people in completely opposite direction. I was wondering if you had any thoughts there.
That's a great point. Honestly, right now, in America, for example, it's certainly, while they don't control the air we breathe, they control everything but in some way, and you can, at least one can make an argument in that regard. So we have precedents here on Earth, and history tells us that those kinds of frameworks, they don't allow the brilliance and visionaries to succeed and propel humanity forward. Certainly this is something to consider, and while that future is grim, no doubt about it, where people would control the air we breathe, or in distant planets, I'd like to believe that the people who ultimately decide to go to places like that, who are brave enough to take that leap of faith, would ultimately have humanity's best interests in heart, and will have a little bit more care and understanding of what it means to succeed in those very harsh environments. And they would really need to be self-reliant, but also reliant on each other to succeed. I feel like it will hopefully show the best of humanity, not the worst of it. Over time, if you ask 500 years, that's a different story. Who knows? Humanity tends to get in its own way sometimes, so that's certainly not, it is on the table, but we'll see. I'd like to believe we're all optimists and we want what's best for everybody.
And if you could, would you take a trip to space?
100%. I certainly want to wait until Starship is fully operational, but I don't like turbulence, so I'm a little bit skittish on flying in general. But I feel like I want to see the 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 Earth from space. Ideally, again, I want to have my anniversary on the moon. That would be great. So I would love to, I would love that, but not right away. If somebody said, like, "Hey, hop on the flight 4 of Starship," I'd be like, let's wait, a couple hundred more at least, maybe a couple thousand, if I'm being honest with myself.
Absolutely. They like give you a free ticket for the fourth
Yeah,
test, and
yeah,
you're
yeah.
like,
Uh,
"Oh, was that today? Sorry,
yeah,
I missed it."
yeah. I have plans for today. Today I can't.
Oh,
Ask, rain check.
right. Exactly. Do you think you'll get a chance to fly in space in your lifetime?
Oh, 100%. I feel if Elon Musk and SpaceX has its way, we all, or most of us, will get a chance to travel. At least take a trip around Earth, enjoy that overview effect, and hopefully quite a big majority of population would also be able to experience the moon as well. Certainly, there's a lot of things that need to happen for this future, and actually, those are not technological things. A lot of those things are a lot simpler. Well, they're related to politics, related to economy, related to availability of resources, and certainly, you know it needs people who are interested, the engineers, right? That's actually one of the big bottlenecks, is the talent pool, because there's only so many brilliant engineers that can work and solve those very challenging problems. So majority of humanity can get access to space. So hopefully, yes.
As that's very hopeful, and I feel the same way, and I have come across so many people in this process of interviewing where
Mhm.
they think that we won't be around in 200 years, and I find that to be scary personally.
A lot of people do feel that way. Frankly, those thoughts do cross my mind, but I feel like they cross my mind because I spend too much time on X, frankly, or reading other sort of social media, whatever. There's a lot of weight and baggage that seems to hold us down or gives us perception that there's nothing to be hopeful about, nothing to be excited about. I feel like if we all looked not so much outside of ourselves but rather inwards, what we can control, what we can do to make that reality possible in whatever way we can personally, that's how we can actually achieve that as collectively. Not so much like look over like, oh, this person is not doing this or that person is not doing that or they're doing it wrong, I would do it differently. Just do something yourself. I think that's the best way we can all collectively succeed in maintaining our humanity and ensuring that humanity becomes a multiplanetary species.
I know. If we spend all the effort that we do on talking about what other people should do on actually doing something ourselves,
Yeah,
imagine the
exactly.
worlds we could create.
Exactly. Yeah, couldn't agree more, Nate.
Well, those were pretty much the questions I had for you. Did you have any questions for me, or is there anything that you think would be good to capture in this recording for people maybe looking back on it 200 years from their habitats on Mars at the beginning of this new space age?
Yeah, I guess many people have asked you about what was your inspiration to get started doing this, but I guess my take on that question is what keeps you going interviewing people right now? Because you mentioned before we started, you've interviewed like over 1,500 times by now. Like, what is that one thing that you say, I have to do this day in and day out? Because that's like that motivation in and of itself is completely mind blowing to me personally. So I would like to learn more what keeps you going, like from day to day.
I am a big starter, but a poor finisher. And I started this project with the idea of interviewing a person a day, and I haven't missed a day yet. And I see the end um, to 2024 as that's like always been like the target point, so close that to actually just complete it, and just to see it like done,
Mm-hmm.
it is. I find that to be the motivation at this point. Each day that I do, I feel like is even more of a commitment to see it through.
That's fantastic. That's and from your standpoint, again, looking about into the future, what is the message that you would like, collectively this series of interviews to carry for people who might look at it back, from the future? Like, what is the kind of quintessential like zeitgeist you're trying to communicate to those people?
Yeah. Um, Honestly, I think it's more curiosity and just trying to document what's actually out there and to become
Mhm.
aware of it myself. If I were to communicate anything to the future, it was just that the future was unclear and has always been contested. And
Mhm.
you know, I guess that would be the number one thing, that their future was not guaranteed, and there were people who thought it wouldn't happen, that thought it shouldn't happen, that thought it could happen, and that thought it would definitely happen.
Mhm.
It's, and hopefully that gives them. Humanity is going to have challenges in the future, and
Mhm.
humanity is going to have good times in the future, and perhaps this would be just another kind of lesson that the present and the future are different from each other. So whatever today challenges you have today may be resolved in the future, and
Mhm.
whatever things you enjoy in today may be gone in the future. And
That's
I think
right.
actually that may be one reason why you have Apollo deniers, actually, because I think it's very painful to think that you lost something and less painful to think that you never had it. So I sometimes think
Mm.
that it's like a psychological safing that
Mhm.
people do.
That's interesting. Well, I can only say, well, thank you for continuing this project. This is truly amazing. I really appreciate being a part of that, and yeah, I'm glad I was able to kind of give my thoughts on this. Hopefully, and good luck with the all the rest of it until the rest of 2024, maybe in and beyond.
But thank you so much. And if you know anybody else, I have over 280 more days to go. So
Yeah, good luck. I'm rooting for you. I hope it will be one big compilation and a giant upload on YouTube.
excellent. Well, thank you so much. You have a good evening, and I look forward to the future when we might our paths might cross again.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Okay,
Bye bye.
bye bye.